I didn't want that, but I'm glad we didn't because.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Calling to order the Borough of Saraville Planning Board meeting for April 5th, 2023. Beth, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, Chairman, it has.
I ask for a roll call.
Mr. Allegra, Mr. Blamar, Mr. Bolton, Mr. Buchanan, Councilman Onoha, Ms. Pulowski, Mr. Spizzato, Chairman Mueller,
Here.
Mr. Cornell, Mr. Fowler,
Here.
Mr. Barlow. We have a quorum.
Just like to formally welcome Sean Bolton to the board. Welcome. Thank you for your service. Beth, are there any resolutions for memorialization?
There's one this evening, Rockville LLC preliminary and final major site plan, block 333, lot 1, block 332, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, block 297, lot 1.
I make a motion to approve that resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. That would be Mr. Blamar, Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato, Chairman Mueller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beth, are there any minutes for approval?
Minutes from February 15th, 2023 and March 1st, 2023.
Make a motion to approve those minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Beth, is there anything on the communication agenda?
none this evening.
Okay. Are there any site plan subdivision applications?
We have two this evening, Saraville Seaport Associates Urban Renewal Preliminary and Final Major Subdivision, an application for amended preliminary and final major site plan for blocks 257, lots 3.04 and 3.052, block 257.01, lots 1, 1.01, 1.10, 4, 5, 6, 20, 30.12, and block 257.02, lots 1, 1.01, and 22.
Thank you, Beth. Applicant, can you please step up, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Phillips Smith. I am an attorney with Gibbons PC, and I am here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Saraville Seaport Associates Urban Renewal, which we usually just call SSA because it's a bit of a mouthful. We are here this evening on two different applications. The first, as mentioned, is preliminary and final major subdivision approval, and the second is on preliminary and final amended major site plan approval.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. So on those two applications, you may recall, this was a number of years ago, that SSA is the master redeveloper for parcel C within the waterfront redevelopment area. We were here back in 2019, specifically December 2019, at which time the board voted to approve preliminary and final site plan approval and preliminary and final major subdivision approval. At that time, we sought site plan approval for 15 buildings within the first phase of what we usually call the Riverton project. We also obtained subdivision approval to create 7 lots, one of which is a very large remainder lot, and the others were carved out for individual development parcels within the parcel C site. Over the past few years, you'll hear today from Mark Fetta that we've been very busy meeting all the conditions of that approval, which we recently did satisfy. And we recently did record the subdivision plat that was approved back in December 2019, with the resolution being adopted in January 2020. We also met all the conditions of site plan approval. We are now approaching the time where we're getting ready to start the vertical construction, the actual buildings. And as we've done so, that's now led to having to refine some of the plans that were before you back in 2019 and 2020. On the subdivision, which you'll hear first, we're here to carve out 3 more lots from that very large remainder lot. 2 of those lots are specifically to build utilities. One is a pump station, the other is an electrical substation. For the site plan approval, what you hear is, although we have approvals for 15 different buildings, we're here tonight to talk only about one, and that is the Bass Pro Shop. And we're specifically here just to talk about the footprint of the building and the facades. The building is very similar to what you previously approved, but as we've gotten closer to construction and the building's been refined, there's been certain, relatively minor changes to the footprint and enhancement to the facades that we think are an overall improvement to the Bass Pro. We are here specifically because we're looking to submit a package for building permits for footings and foundations. And in order to do that, we have to come back to you because what we're submitting building permits for, or hope to submit building permits for, doesn't match exactly what was previously approved. So with those two applications, it's been suggested we kind of run through both since they're related. We do have a few witnesses. You'll first hear from Mark Fetta, who is our Senior VP of Development, who's going to provide a bit of an overview and some context of how we got to the approvals in 2019 and what has happened on the site since then. You'll then hear from Dan Bush from Colliers, who will go through the subdivision and identify the lots that we're looking to create by the subdivision, and also address our request for what's called a planning variance. One of the lots does not front on a road. It's for the electrical substation. You'll hear that we're proposing an easement to run down to that lot. That requires relief from section 35 by way of the standards in section 36 of the municipal land use law. That's called a planning variance. After Mr. Bush, we'll be calling up Anthony Calvano, who is also from Colliers, who will talk about the footprint for Bass Pro. Then Mr. Bush actually will come back to talk a bit about the landscaping and screening. And finally, we'll end with Eric Albers, who is the design professional who works with Bass Pro nationwide on formulating the footprints and facades of their buildings. So that's our plan for this evening. We did provide public notice, both mailed and published, and provided an affidavit to the board secretary in advance of the meeting this evening.
Thank you for that background, Jennifer. We appreciate that.
Great.
Would you like to call your first witness?
I would. I will call Mark Fetta, please. Okay.
Yes, please.
My name is Mark Fetta, F-E-T-A-H. So help me God, yes.
So Mr. Fetta, you're this evening as a fact witness, but if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself to the board and just providing a summary of your education and experience.
Okay, certainly. I have a bachelor's of science from Penn State University. I graduated in 1981 in architectural engineering, and subsequently I went right to work for three of the big engineering and construction companies in the United States: Tishman Realty and Construction, Laird McGovern Bovis, and Skanska. Gave me a great opportunity to work in different places in the country and also overseas on projects like Euro Disneyland and Canary Wharf in the UK, both of which bring some experience that I use every day here at Riverton. Subsequently, 2013, I received my MBA at Carnegie Mellon in asset management. And that enabled me to transition my career a little bit into the development world and the ownership world. I ran Harrah's Entertainment and Construction, their design and construction operation actually in the East Coast here. So that was everything from outside of Chicago, down through Atlantic City, of course, and then down into the Bahamas. And that led to a couple of another career move with private equity, Goldman Sachs, and a private equity company, Lone Star, all of which, you know, I stayed true to construction. That's what I do. That's what I love, and project management. So just because I have a finance degree doesn't mean I'm a banker.
And Mr. Fetta, what is your role with the Riverton project?
Well, a title is one thing, and you said, Jen, it's the Senior Vice President of Development, but that role entails the management coordination of all the engineering, architecture, vertical and horizontal procurement contracts, as well as construction management, and even labor relationships, which is something that I pride myself on. We have a phenomenal relationship with Middlesex County Building Trades and all the union craft workers on the project.
Great. So,
Mr. Freda, if I can just, do we want a working mic?
Yeah, is it
Yeah,
not
but-
working?
I want to make sure those who are watching from home can also hear.
I didn't notice that wasn't working. Test? Test. There we go.
Jennifer, not to interrupt, but is Mr. Feder going to be addressing one application first? Are we going to be taking, or is he going to be addressing both or?
Mr. Fed is going to be providing background that's relevant for both applications.
Okay,
So he's generally going to be testifying to what's happened with the project over the last few years.
okay, great.
If you want to take down the cover sheet there, we'll move right to A1. And we can start right there. So starting with A1, Mr. Feta, can you just generally orient the board to the project and then begin to describe the last few years of approvals and then the beginning of some of the construction?
Yes, okay. So this is the entire assemblage that Sarah owns. I believe it was 2008 when parcel A, which is 55 acres, was conveyed, I believe, as open space to the county and DEP. In fact, I think the remediation was completed there just before I arrived in 2018 and capped. Parcel B, which is in the middle, is and parcel C, 311 acres. Those are the developable acreages on the Riverton site.
Mr. Feder, just not to
So-
interrupt you, but do you think we can move the exhibit so the folks in the audience could see,
Yeah.
angle it?
And we actually have a suggestion. We do have printed handouts that we can hand to the board members.
that'd be
and
great.
That way we could turn this board a little bit.
Yes,
If you have extra for members of the public.
Yeah. Thanks.
There we go.
If any folks in the public would like a copy, so we can all, thank you, Mr. Feder, for moving that.
So Mr. Feta, I think you were about to talk about parcel C, which is the subject of the application this evening.
Yes. So again, these are the, moving from, that level, 10,000 feet, as it were, we'll move a couple years ahead to early 2019.
And this
Um,
is Exhibit A2, which was the approved concept plan. Go ahead.
Okay. And as I mentioned before, we have parcel B and parcel C. Parcel C is the one that is most ripe for development in terms of availability and I think marketplace acceptance. At this time, the SSA and North American Properties concept significantly different than the prior developer, which was an indoor mall surrounded by several subdivisions of single-family residential. Whereas we like to say on our team here that we're really building an extension of Sayreville, a 24/7 live, work, play environment truly. And it's more urban in nature than the prior development. And I would point out that at that time, we were able to retain the relationship with Bass Pro, who was also on the original site plan by our predecessor. But in addition, you see the central core here, which is modeled after the North American Properties project in Alpharetta, Georgia, by the name of Avalon. And so it is, again, live, work, play environment, more dense, and it's literally the heart of the village. And it is primarily ground floor retail, food and beverage, and then 4 stories of apartments, multifamily, and in some cases loft office. There's also a hotel that was approved several hotels, actually. I keep focusing on the central core here, but overall, there's 2,000 units that were approved in the master plan of
Mhm.
residential, 1,500 multifamily, and 500 single family. And the single family naturally is along the waterfront. I think it's worth it to inform the board also that part of the approvals that we just went through prior to the concept plan involve, I believe it's a 13.7 or 14.7 acres of open space, which is the waterfront that's deeded to the county. So there'll be no private ownership of the waterfront experience.
So moving on from the concept plan that was approved in 2019. The applicant obtained approval from this board for phase one. And what was part of the phase one approval shown on exhibit A3?
So it's the always ubiquitous Bass Pro Shop in what we call Phase 1A on the other side of Epic Church, which Epic Church is an out parcel, not connected with Riverton. But certainly I should pause there. The relationship with the church has been phenomenal. They've been a great neighbor and putting up with our construction activities. And I'll talk a little bit about some business relationships that we have with them in a little bit. Phase one also included the first set of what we call the Gateway Services buildings, that are right off of Main Street Extension. At the time, other than Bass Pro, Bass Pro was the only tenant that we had lined up, but we knew from the market what types of services would be in this area. And then Phase 1C, which is the first half, we call this the Village East. And I described that in the concept plan a few moments ago. Also in this phase one site plan that was approved in 2019, it featured a stormwater management basin that we'll talk about in a little bit. We'll show you some pictures of all the work that's been done subsequent to 2019. It also included a corner of this parcel right here, which is the pump station, the sanitary sewer pump station.
Good. So moving on to A4, you mentioned the Village East. Can you describe this exhibit briefly?
Yes, this is a photo from Avalon. It's one of my favorites. As I said, the center core of Riverton has an open, like a central green, and it's a feature of what NAP does, North American Properties, that we think is really important here. It's a multi-flex space. It changes from season to season. Here you see a wintertime experience. It could be, they have food fairs and things like that in the summertime. It also flexes day to day. In the morning, it may be an exercise class on the green. In the evening, it would be something that is like family movie night. These central core, this central green area is highly hospitality oriented. It has a concierge operation, and the property management staff is, as I said, very hospitality oriented.
All right, so
We
that
can move to the next.
summarizes what was previously approved. And we go to our next stack over here. So since December 2019, when we were here, what are some of the conditions of that site plan approval that you've been working with the team to address? And we're now up to exhibit A5, which is the governmental conditions of the 2019 site plan approval.
So yes, Jen, these are, this represents a significant amount of what our team has been working on in the last 3 or 4 years to gain the approvals. And some of these governmental conditions applied not just to phase one, but also to future phases of Village West, for example. And I would point out that several of these activities include off-site improvements, Route 9 and 35, which we've just bid and contract and are about to award that, as well as an extension of the water system, the existing municipal water system.
So other than those conditions, I know moving to the next ward. There you go. So this is exhibit, this should be A6. I know you wanted to go through some of the work that's been done on site. Everyone always asks when the building's going to start, but I know for the last few years, in addition to working on some of the conditions of approval, your team has been busy doing some of the other construction on site. So can you talk a little bit about the construction that's been ongoing? And we're looking at exhibit A6 for existing conditions 2019 and A7 for the permitted remedial obligations for site redevelopment in 2023.
So we can see the existing conditions here in 2019. And we'll talk a lot about the bulkhead, which is this area of the riverfront experience. Just the nature of the site back then was not developable. And so we came in and we organized the project in a way that in the last 4 years, we now have this situation here with a brand new bulkhead. You'll see on this picture as well, the foundation for the V-zone wall, which is a retaining wall that helps us elevate the village to climate resiliency grades for the future development. You also see that this vast area here has been geotechnically improved structural fill, in some cases, deep dynamic compaction. And basically everything that we looked at on phase 1 approval from 2019 has now been readied geotechnically for development, as well as some of the sanitary sewer and storm sewer infrastructure. So that's just one example.
Then moving on to exhibits A8 and A9. Can you describe A8, the existing conditions?
In this exhibit, we're looking at what was the primary lagoon. There was a 3-pond lagoon system that pre-existed on the site. And what we have done is geotechnically stabilize this with an operation that's called in situ soil stabilization, where we create a bottom with enough bearing capacity to build the new stormwater management basin. And this new basin was completed late last year. It represents a significant investment. It was about $6 million to build this stormwater management basin, which will be owned and operated actually by the redeveloper, not the borough. But it covers more than just phase 1. It gives us runway to build even further into phase 2, which would be the village west, and even north from there into what we call phase 3.
All right, and then I think,
Can we use 10, Jeanette? Jen?
yes, so A10.
So what we're looking at here is a section of the riverfront south of the bulkhead. And what you'll see is where we've stabilized the river edge so that it is not prone to any sort of wave run up or washout from storms. So we've stabilized this, and you can see the beginnings of the pad site for the first residential, single family residential that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So things are really shaping up.
So Mr. Fett, I have 2 questions related to the subdivision tonight. 2 of the lots I mentioned are related to utilities. Can you talk about why a pump station is needed and why an electrical substation will be needed?
Sure. So that, again, is we've been working on building utilities and getting approvals and contracts for utilities on the site. The pump station, for example, is gravity sewer that will serve the entire parcel B and C. And that pump station is in the middle of the site. We'll see it in a few moments.
Mhm.
And then there is a force main between the pump station and the MC Way treatment facility next door.
And the idea, I believe, is to have the pump station on a separate lot. Is that correct?
Yes, that pump station will be owned and operated by the Water and Sewer Department of the Borough of Sayreville after it's properly commissioned, built, and then we need to run it for some period of time to prove its effectiveness.
And then why is the electrical substation needed?
There's no power on the site in the simplest sense. When we first got here, we were able to get a reservation for 3 megs of power for the first phase of the project, which includes Bass Pro and the highway services buildings and the pump station. After that, there's insufficient power for the rest of the concept plan, which you may remember is about 4 million square feet of non-residential, and then the 2,000 residential units. So that substation will be built by JCP now. We just entered into a contract with them. They're performing the engineering, and part of this, and the subdivision we're asking for is to subdivide that lot, which will eventually be owned and operated by JCP&L.
Mr. Feta, that's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's see.
Any questions for Mr. Feder? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Feder, for that background. It's very helpful.
So with that, I'd like to call up Dan Bush, who is our engineer and planner from Colliers. Great. All right. So if we could swear in Mr. Bush.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Bush, if you could please introduce yourself to the board and summarize your education, experience, and licensure, both in the fields of engineering and professional planning.
Sure. I have a bachelor's of civil engineering from the University of Delaware. Been practicing in this field for almost 30 years, working on this particular site for about half my career. So I'm quite passionate about the site and this project. I'm a licensed professional engineer. All the civil drawings that have been prepared with this application, or prior applications for that matter, have been under my supervision. And I'm also a licensed professional planner to deal with the planning variants that we have this evening.
And your licenses in engineering and planning in New Jersey are both current, correct?
That's correct.
So with that, I would like to offer Mr. Bush as an expert in both civil engineering and planning.
Any members of the board have any questions or objections regarding the CV? Yep.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are going to have Mr. Bush testify as the subdivision now. I'll be bringing him back up in a little bit to talk specifically about landscaping related to the site plan application. But for now, we're going to start with the subdivision. So Mr. Bush, I think we're up to exhibit A11. A12.
A12.
We've skipped over A11. We'll just note that for the record. So A12,
So
you could describe what this is.
sure. So A12 is basically the Riverton Village Phase 1 site plan approval. And we've overlaid in color the 3 new lots that were created out of lot 1.05, which was part of the original Phase 1 approval. So we have 3 new lots that we're creating, and then there's the remainder of lot 1.05. So just going in letter order. So lot A is across the street, across Riverton Crossing from Bass Pro Shops. That lot is 5.21 acres. That it will be part of a future retail site plan application that will come back before this board. Immediately adjacent to that, as Mark described, is Lot B, which is our pump station lot. That pump station was in fact part of the Riverton Village Phase 1 approval. So there's no subsequent site plan that'll be associated with that pump station because it was already approved by the board. But we are now creating that lot, which will ultimately be dedicated to the borough as Mark described. And then we have Lot C, which Mark described, that is our substation that will ultimately be dedicated to JCP&L. And we've provided, because it does not as Jim pointed out, does not front on a public street. That is a planning variance under section 35. In order to meet the requirements for the board to be able to approve that under section 36, we have to provide for a means of access. So for emergency vehicles. So we're proposing providing a 20-foot wide access easement from South Avenue, which is a public street, which was approved as part of Riverton Village Phase 1. So that is a public street. We're providing that means of access. Ultimately, when we come back and develop, I'll call it the southern portion of lot 1.05, with retail, there will be a paved access to that substation. But until that time, we're going to provide for that easement. So there is the ability for not only JCP&L to services, but as well for emergency services to be able to reach that lot as well. And then just for the record, the remainder of lot 1.05 would be then 213.49 acres, which will be come back for a series of subsequent subdivisions and subsequent site plans at a future date.
Now, Mr. Bush, specifically with respect to section 36 of the municipal land use law, it indicates that when there would be practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship, or the circumstances of the case do not require the building or structures to be related to the street, a board can grant a planning variance under that section to allow lot C to exist without it being immediately adjacent to a road. So do you find here that there are practical difficulties or circumstances that do not require the building or structure to be related to a street?
Certainly. As I indicated, the substation is remote from the existing public streets, and that's by design because we don't want the substation in the middle of the site. It's obvious that we want that in a remote location. Therefore, it's not currently on one of the public streets. At some point in the future, as I indicated, it would be on some form of paved access driveway to provide direct access in the future.
And for this type of use, do you anticipate that there will be frequent use of the driveway to get to the substation?
No, it'll be when JCP&L needs to go out there and do some kind of service associated with the substation. So pretty infrequent.
And if something were to happen at the substation, then the fire department or other emergency services would have to get there. Would that access easement be sufficient to allow that type of
Yes.
access?
20-foot wide would be the minimum for a fire lane. So that's the design requirement for the 20 feet.
So in your role as a licensed professional planner, do you believe that this application meets the criteria in section 36 for a planning variance?
I do.
That is all I have for Mr. Bush on the subdivision.
Mr. Bush, did you reviewed the technical review by CME and Mr. Fowler?
I did.
Okay, I just want to be clear, is there any of those conditions that the applicant doesn't plan on
I
complying with?
think the only thing we wanted to clarify is the substation may not actually ultimately front on a public street. It will be on some form of paved driveway. So it could potentially that this planning variance could remain in perpetuity. It certainly would not be some form of temporary 20-foot wide easement. It will be something more formal, paved. Functionally, it would be a street. It just might not be a public street. That was the only thing I just wanted to clarify.
And I will add that in the redevelopment agreement, it's actually extremely specific as to which streets will be public versus private, because the borough did not want all of the streets in Riverton to be public roads that would have to then be cared for by taxpayers. So some of the roads will remain private as far as they'll be cared for by the owners or by the association of owners of the property down the road.
All the other conditions in those reports, they're going to be complied with.
Correct.
Great.
Yep.
Yes, with one other clarification, and that is on affordable housing. We do have a redevelopment agreement, and the applicant also specifically has an affordable housing agreement with the borough. So rather than the payment being with reference to the affordable housing ordinance, it's actually with respect to the agreement, which was court approved as part of the borough's settlement.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Bush? Sure, go ahead.
Just in the project description, I guess that's what you're, maybe that was in my report also regarding the public road. It does say it is anticipated that a public road will be built in the future to service the resultant lot and provide adequate access for. I'm with the microphone a little closer too. It just says that it is anticipated that a public road will be built in the future to service the resultant lot, provide adequate access to, for construction, emergency vehicles alike, to the eventual substation. So that's where, I guess I came up with. the-
100%. Yep, I read
So
the
that's not
same.
the case.
I'm just clarifying that, yeah, it may not be a public road. So
Okay.
yep, I read the same thing.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Doesn't look like there's any more questions, so thank you very much, Mr. Bush.
Thank you.
All right, my next witness, I'd like to call up Anthony Calvano, who's going to begin talking about the request for preliminary, amended preliminary and final major site plan approval.
Anthony Calvano, C-A-L-V as in Victor, A-N-O. I do.
Mr. Calvano, I'd like to offer you as an expert in the field of civil engineering. So if you could please summarize your education, experience, and licensure.
Yes. So I'm an engineer for Colliers Engineering Design. I have a bachelor's of science degree in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. And I have approximately 8 years of experience in the industry and then preparing site plans.
And are
I-
you licensed as a civil engineer in the state of New Jersey?
I am, yes.
And have you been accepted as an expert in front of any other boards in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I have.
Can you give an example of one or two?
The Township of Woodbridge and the Borough of Tinton Falls.
Thank you. Your license in New Jersey is current, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to offer Mr. Calvano as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Does anyone on the board have any questions or objection? No? Okay, we accept it. Thank you,
Thank
Counselor.
you.
Welcome, Mr.
Thank you.
Calvano.
Thank you.
So I believe we left off on exhibit A12 before, so I think that's exhibit A13, correct?
Correct.
So we're going to pause for one moment because we do have the printouts to kind of pick up where you left off. Yeah. We'll hand those out. Right. Perfect. So Mr. Calvano, we mentioned that we've also filed an application for amended preliminary and final major site plan approval, and that specifically we're talking about the building that we commonly call the Bass Pro Building. So using exhibit A13, if you could explain that exhibit and also use it to identify the portion of the site where the Bass Pro Building is located.
Yes, so we're still in parcel C here, just as the subdivision was. It's within the eastern portion of parcel C, adjacent to exit 125 of the Garden State Parkway. And the as indicated under the approved and recently filed subdivision plat, this is known as block 257.02, lot 7, and it contains approximately 20 acres.
Moving on to exhibit A14. It was requested, I believe it was in Mr. Fowler's letter, that we compare the footprint that was previously approved in December 2019 to what's being proposed today. So using this exhibit A14, can you explain the differences in the footprint for the Bass Pro Building?
Correct. So approximately 7,000 square feet have been removed from the building. So in association with that, in association with some of the internal coordination within the building, the footprint has changed to accommodate that. So previously, you could see in red is the previously approved footprint from the 2019 application. And the in black line work is the current footprint that we're currently applying for. So the three main areas of the footprint that have been modified are the loading. So previously the loading was back in the southeast corner of the building, closer to the Parkway exit. That has now been relocated to the southwestern portion of the building, more internal to the site. In association with that, the boat service area was previously along the western portion of the building. That has now been shifted back to the southern portion of the building, which would front what was known as Chevalier Avenue and what was approved as Riverton Boulevard under the prior application. The last major item would be along the front of the building. The main pedestrian entrance has shifted slightly, and there's been some shifts in the towers along the front facade of the building. But the key piece here is that this all stays within what I'll call the prior pad. Essentially, the circulation road that previously was approved around the building is remaining the same, and these footprint changes are staying within that previously approved pad.
So as part of this application, is the applicant requesting any additional variances or any additional design waivers?
No.
So moving on to Exhibit A 15. 15?
15.
15.
correct.
Can you describe what this exhibit is and how it relates to the proposed building?
Yeah, so this exhibit is a little bit more detailed site plan of the current footprint, and it also is, I'll discuss the circulation around the building. So the first time that I want to point out, as Jen noted, that there is no additional relief necessary for this. We're still complying with the major setback here, which is along the tract of the boundary of the tract. So in this case, the Parkway exit, we're maintaining that 50-foot setback to the right-of-way line. And there's also minimal change in impervious coverage, which is still accommodated under the prior approval.
I know you mentioned the circulation. Can you just describe generally how the circulation will work?
Yes, so the first item is that the circulation being presented is only around the building because that's what we're focusing on as the public right-of-ways adjacent to the Bass Pro parcel. We're not requesting any modifications to those with this application. And in addition as well, the access to the Bass Pro parcel from the previously proposed public right-of-ways, there's no proposed modification as part of this application. So focusing around the building, as I mentioned before, what I'll call the ring driveway around the building, the design is essentially the same. Minimum radii of the curb is 25 feet, and it goes all the way up to over 100 feet to accommodate the truck turning where necessary. And essentially, the trucks will be able to circulate both clockwise and counterclockwise around the building. For the purpose of this exhibit, what we're showing coming clockwise around the building and accessing the loading area.
Great. And the next exhibit, do we get into let's see. Perfect. All right. So just to clarify, we received two reports related directly to the site plan. One was from Mr. Fowler dated March 30th of 2023. And the other was from Mr. Cornell of CME dated April 5th, 2023. So in Mr. Fowler's letter, it was asked that you describe the circulation patterns, which you've just done. There was also a question about the applicant, whether the applicant would be subject to the new state law requiring the parking area to have EV charging stations. So as part of this application, are we proposing to change the previously approved parking area?
No, not as part of this application.
And this application is intended just to get the board's approval, hopefully, for the footprints that we can proceed to apply for building permits for footing and foundation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, do you anticipate that we may need to file another site plan application in the future in order to address possible changes to the parking area itself?
Yes.
And at that time, we can discuss whether or not the change in state law changes whether EV would be required in the previously approved parking lot. Is that correct?
Yes.
So as part of this application, since we are not changing the parking lot area, we have not incorporated anything new as far as parking spaces or EV spaces, correct?
No.
And then in the CME letter, we are going to have additional testimony from Bass Pro's design professional. But is there anything in the CME letter where changes were requested that the applicant cannot comply with?
No, there are not.
Mhm.
I guess, to the EV.
Sure.
Just so I understand it, you're not proposing to move for any permitting involving the parking lot, which would trigger anything involving the EV. Assuming you're going to come back at a later date. I
That's,
don't want the EV to be forgotten and go away. But if you're not going to start building a parking lot right now until you come back before the board again, then we could do it as a condition that the applicant agrees that they will address the EV at a subsequent application.
that's correct. And we are not 100% sure that the new law applies, but we will address that at the time we come back for changes to the parking. And you'll hear from Mr. Alpers that the building permitting here will be done over a series of building permit packages, the first package being the footing and foundation. And we will agree that we won't start the parking lot until we come back to revise the parking lot plans with an amended site plan.
I would agree, Ms. Smith. No one knows how they're going to implement the EV regulations, especially if it's not a brand new housing development. So
Right.
I think it makes sense to let that play out and see how it will be applied.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's not the only site-related issue. The fact that the loading areas flip from one side to the other, there's grading issues and other things. So that's going to be all part of when they come back to you for
Mhm.
preliminary approval for the site plan. That'll be dealt with at that time, along with EV, landscaping, anything else that's site-related. This specifically is just for the footprint, but in our report, we recommend that that be a condition. If you approve the footprint change, they'll have to come back and get preliminary approval for any other modifications to the site as a result of building change.
We would just ask that condition that it be timing related. So it's not a condition that we have to fulfill before we pull building permits for footings. It would be a condition we'd have to fulfill before we could pull building permits for anything beyond the footings and foundations.
That was not our intention. We'd like, I think the board and borough wants to see this building started, so.
Yes.
We're looking forward to the construction, so we don't want to do anything to prevent that. That's why this is not typically how it's done. Typically, you
Yeah.
do them both at the same time, but
Mhm.
because of their urgency to get the building going, we have no objection as long as it's a condition that they'll come back.
Thank you. I do not have any further questions for Mr. Calvano, although we do have some additional engineering testimony from Mr. Bush to bring back up.
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Bush, you've already been qualified during this application as an expert in the field of civil engineering and planning. I'm going to ask you a few questions related to landscaping. Now, just for clarity, as we've just heard, the on-site landscaping is not part of this application.
That is correct.
What was previously approved is not being changed today. But there were some questions about the screening and buffering related to the loading being changed from one side of the build to the other. And along those lines, there was landscaping previously approved by this board that is along the streets and the right-of-ways. Can you address how that previously approved landscaping will work as far as screening for the loading area and on the proposed building?
Sure. So all the landscaping outside of the lot, so the lot lines don't change whatsoever. We're not changing them whatsoever. All the landscaping outside of the Bass Pro lot is all exactly the same. There's no changes whatsoever. So the double staggered row of trees along what is Riverton Crossing, the west side, or Riverton Boulevard on the south side, or the southbound exit ramp, which is on the east side, all that landscaping is the same. So it provides good screening for the building as well as the cars. So I just got this is A16. I'm just going to flip to A17. So with the original 2019 application, we did cross sections just to illustrate for the board that how the building would be screened. These are largely the same. What you see on the top is this is section A, which is from south to north with Bass Pro building on the right-hand side. And you can see the double staggered row of trees. And in fact, the site is uphill slightly. The building and the site is slightly uphill. And there's a low row of shrubs in front of the parking stall, so you don't get the headlights out into the street. So it provides that kind of buffer. And then the trees provide some buffering for the building as well. And this, you can see, is carried over. This is just another section on Riverton Boulevard further to the east. Again, same thing, the double staggered row with the low evergreen shrubs at the parking stalls. And this is the section from the southbound exit ramp, with the exit ramp being on the left-hand side of the exhibit and the building being on the right-hand side of the exhibit. And our architect will come up and speak far more in detail about the building. It's substantially different on the Parkway side, substantially improved because we no longer have the loading dock there. The loading dock, as Anthony described, is now on the west side of the building. And that same double staggered row with evergreen shrubs is carried through on basically all three sides of the building. So it's certainly well buffered.
So just for the record, just so we make sure we marked all those correctly, the exhibits you just went through, if you could call out those
Sure.
numbers.
So the first one was A16, and that's the 2D colored landscape plan. And then the first section is A17, and that has section A and section B on it. And then A18 has section C on it.
Thank you.
And that's all I had on the landscape.
Perfect. So now we get to how the building itself will look, moving on from the footprint and the landscaping. And for that, I'd like to call up Eric Albers.
Just one moment. Any questions regarding the landscape? No? Okay, thank you.
While we shuffle exhibit boards, I'm going to have Mr. Albers sworn in.
Eric Albers. ALBERS. Yes.
Is it ALP as in Peter or B as in boy?
B as in boy.
Okay.
So we're going to offer Mr. Albers this evening as a fact witness, but I am going to have him explain some of his background and experience and licensure in other states. So Mr. Albers, if you could begin there, please.
Yes. I went to college in Drury University in Springfield, Missouri, same area that Johnny Morris grew up in. I graduated with a bachelor's in architecture and a bachelor's in studio art. From there, even when I was in college, I had a pretty good relationship with Bass Pro. I ran their model department back then. You didn't have these nice renderings from 3D models. You actually had to build them by hand. That was my job for Johnny. From there, I worked at a multitude of firms and with primary jobs of working on Bass Pro stores from 99 till 2005. And then went to another firm and did the exact same thing from then till 2010. From there, my partner and I started our own firm, and we have been working with Johnny ever since then as well. So my experience with Johnny has spanned quite a few years, all the way from college to now. We are currently, since we started our own firm, we've worked on well over 4 million square feet of his stores, all the way from small remodels to the main store, his mother store in Springfield, to ground ups, to additions to some of his mega stores like the Memphis Pyramid was a project of mine for about 2.5 years. So we've got a tremendous amount of experience with this client. We're currently licensed in 20 states and have like 10 projects going on right now across the country with Johnny.
And simply to clarify for the record, who is Johnny Morris?
Johnny Morris, of course, is the owner of Bass Pro Shops. Morris.
And so you've been working with Bass Pro, working on their design for well over 20 years. Is that correct? Right. And are you a licensed architect in any other states?
I am licensed architect. I'm licensed in Missouri. My partner is the one that holds their licenses in their other states just because it's more efficient through the NCARB system.
So if you could please describe, I know you have been working on modifications to the building as Bass Pro is approaching construction. Is that correct?
Correct. I've actually had the privilege of working on this project from the conception. So we've been involved with every rendition that this project's had to date. Since the last project we came out, we've looked at the ability of where we can enhance the project to make it better. Bass Pro always wants to try to elevate their stores as much as they can. They're always evolving, usually sometimes all the way to the day it opens. So this project was no different. We were reevaluating the project to see what opportunities there were for just to elevate the store more than what we already have. The store is already a much larger store in its features than we have in a lot of our other locations. We're pretty excited about it in that respects. But as far as the overall program of the building, not a whole lot's changed there. You can see in the exhibit we have here, A19, that the original building was 200,500 square foot. Now we've reduced it barely down to 198,500 square foot. Mostly this is just due to the undulations of the towers that we try to bring into the building has reduced the square footage just in a minor aspect. Retail area was 134,000. That's increased a little bit due to the changes that we've done to the boat sales area. So now that's at 135,350. We have a lot of the same other amenities that we had inside the store as far as archery ranges are concerned. We still originally we had 26,000 square foot bowling alley restaurant. We're still going to have a restaurant entertainment portion to this project. That's still kind of being evaluated with Bass Pro with some of their partnerships with restaurants to figure out which one is really the best fit for this project. But that is still, a very viable and realistic part of the program. We're also adding some larger conference rooms that could be used for large events for the community. These work really well in some of the other projects we've done before as community spaces that could be rented out for different functions. So that'll be a new addition to the project. Of course, we also still have the boat sales, various storage for different products from the warehouse to part storage for the boat service to the footwear. All those type of back of house amenities are still there. And we still have our staple aquatic displays that we have in every store. So that part doesn't change. That's part of Bass Pro's brand that they really want to make sure that stays on all stores. So you'll still have the very large grand entrances. You'll still have the very large lobbies with the fireplaces that you can almost walk in. They're so large with the clear stories and everything that is really indicative of a Bass Pro brand.
And the office that was previously proposed in 2019, is that being reduced with this application?
Yes, it is being reduced within that store to allow us to bring some of the other amenities up.
Great. So moving on to the next exhibit. Perfect. If you could tell me if that's A20?
Yes.
Perfect. Can you describe A20?
Yeah, this is where we really start to look at the facade and see what, enhancements or improvements we can make to the project. As you kind of heard, we we looked at the dock area and kind of realized that this maybe was a missed opportunity from the bird's eye view you have from the highway. You know, when you're on grade and you have vehicles and personnel on grade, you can very easily accomplish screening something like your dock area. But when you got a highway right next to it, that's the first thing they're going to see from our building. So we felt like there was a better opportunity to move this to the other side of the property where we can better screen it from the roadside and allow us to really capitalize on the highway view from that facade. So we moved the boat sales area to that area and really tried to improve the overall outlook of that side of the building. What we had done is add 2 additional towers on each side. Those towers reach about 5 feet higher than what they used to for the boat sales area. And then we added a larger tower in the center. All of this has some major curtain wall in it, so it's going to be very open and inviting. From the highway side, you'll be able to see that very, very easily and really draw people down into this area. Pretty much we have glass from the bookend to the bookend now on this side of the facade. That's also going to allow us to expand our boat sales area. So now they'll have more selection of boats in this area from all the way from freshwater to saltwater, their designs. We'll also have their areas for their new ATV line that they've been coming out with. So there'll be an increase in ATVs and things of that nature. So we really felt like this really enhanced and brought the building up to a better stance on what it can actually be, and still stay within our original footprint design. In addition to that, the back facade before was the only thing you really seen was the clear story that runs all the way through the building. But this being the main farewell through the property, we felt like we didn't want this to look like a back to a building anymore. So we've added additional towers as well as the wraparound on the side from the boat sales, so that now every facade on the building doesn't look like anything other than the main facade. So I think that really adds to the overall enhancement and look of the building itself. And as we already talked, we did move the dock area to this side where we can really kind of screen that much better. So now you don't see it from vehicular traffic within the site or from the highway side. We also moved the boat service center from one side of the building to the back here. It has a lot better functionality back here. It keeps a lot of the boats off of an area where we didn't really want them. And we feel like we can screen that a little bit better as well. So that's some of our main improvements. We also added a couple of towers on the front of the building. And you can see we also wrapped around our glazing from the clear story or for the boat sales area. So
I know you have 2 additional exhibits, and these are not in the printed handouts, but if you could move on to A21 and just describe this color rendering.
these are concept renderings that were done to kind of help display what some of these changes are. This is our main entrance. You can kind of see some of the glazing and the boat sails over here on the other side. We still have a very large entrance, grand entrance like you would have with any Bass Pro as one of their staple brands. And this was a A21. The next one that I want to show is the changes that we're showing to the boat sales area that you'd see from the highway side. Vast improvements to what we had before and still keeping within our really original footprint design.
Excellent. That's all I have for Mr. Albers.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Albers? Fowler?
Just a quick question. The 2023 uses that are being proposed, where there's differences from the 2020, 2019, all those uses are consistent with what's allowed in the redevelopment plan?
Correct.
It does say archery range boat sales area. You know, the archery range isn't in the boat sales area now, correct?
It's not in the boat sales area.
No, no.
So-
No, it's
sort of
it's
a
a
conflict there.
solitary room that's definitely safe, and we put them in every store location. So it
Thank you.
That would make the boat sales area a little more interesting.
it
Very
definitely
no.
interesting.
it definitely will.
And there's not going to be a bowling alley now?
That's still under discussion with Bass Pro, to be honest with you. They're exploring some different ideas as far as the restaurant, and want to make sure that whatever that synergy is, that they both feed off each other very well. So we still do bowling alley restaurants. They're just trying to determine if this is the right spot for that location, or if we do one of their other restaurant designs.
Any other questions for Mr. Albers? Thank you, Mr. Albers.
Thank you. And I just would like kind of wrap it up as far as, the next steps and where we want to go. We're very excited to really start to move some dirt on this project. We're gonna, as we mentioned, we want to do this thing in phases so we can get out here and start as soon as we possibly can. Right now, the phases we're looking at is a foundation package first. We're actually looking to issue that out for bids as early as next week. So we're really eager to start getting this thing going. Our next package would be a shell package to get the entire envelope done. We're really scheduling that. It's kind of aggressive to be done by the end of May. And then we've got an IT package, interior package that we're looking at doing. That would be, I think I got it at August 7th is really our target date for that. So we're really working hard to try to get this thing going. I think the developer and us have been working on this project long enough in the planning stage that we're really excited to bring this forward to the community.
Just to clarify, when you say package, those are your design documents that you're putting together
Correct.
for building permit purposes.
Correct.
Mr. Albers, when do you expect to open the store?
That's still kind of under debate, with right now, the construction industry is kind of a volatile area, with lead time of certain pieces of equipment, it's really hard to nail down something like that. So that opening date has not been set. That's still under negotiations with dealing with what the construction schedule will be and the acquiring of some of these equipment that's hard to get. But I know that we're already feverishly working on lead time items that we need to get ahead of time so that we can try to minimize the construction schedule as much as we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So those are all the witnesses that I have this evening on both the subdivision application and the site plan application.
Question, Jennifer, in terms of the site plan application, other than the issues that we discussed tonight, is the applicant going to comply with the conditions that were set forth in Mr. Fowler and Mr. Cornell's reports?
Yes, with the two clarifications, one on the subdivision about the timing of complying with that was on the site plan application, with the timing of coming back in for a subsequent site plan on parking, and just clarifying that affordable housing will be done in accordance with our existing agreement.
Okay. Want to open it to the public? Any public questions, comments? I don't see anyone from the public, so motion to close to the public?
Let's close.
Close. All in favor? Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Any final comments, Jennifer?
We thank you for your time, and I know we've put a lot in front of you, so thank you on both applications. And if there are any other questions, we're obviously here as you deliberate.
May I ask? I think probably most appropriate for you, perhaps, Mr. Fetter, Mr. Calvano. I think you had mentioned it's modeled after Complex Avalon in Alpharetta. Is that correct?
The entire complex, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you speak to, again, we're multiple steps down the road from this question being potentially answerable. I'm a class 2 designee, so I do sit on our environmental commission. So I would love to ask Avalon and Alpharetta, what sort of green initiatives do they have as talking points, braggable points? Do we have, I know EV charging is something that we'll look at as we get to the next phase, but are there plans for any sort of solar or green initiatives or bragging points that we as a community can say, Riverton is great for Sayreville, and here's why, aside from some of the more obvious?
test. Yeah. Would you mind breaking that down into a couple of questions?
Sure. I think chiefly, what bragging points does Riverton offer in terms of its commitment to either green initiatives or solar panels or, what are the things that I can take back to folks and say, here at Planning Board, we heard some really exciting things coming down the pike from Riverton, and here's what we could potentially be looking at.
Sure. There's a couple issues that, and typically this happens when you're in building construction and you'll specify energy efficient equipment. But in this case, we really have started with those sorts of initiatives in the very beginning. So we're recycling a lot of all of the steel that was left on the site from the industrial operation. We're also recycling, I think we are at about 145,000 square feet of concrete slabs that were left and footings from the prior industrial operation. After they're properly tested and characterized, some of which have some contaminants that are shipped off-site, all under the auspices of DEP. The rest of that is crushed and used on-site. So significant savings there. The concrete that we're using presently for the head walls, the V-zone wall that we showed in some of our exhibits, that's all using type L cement, which is significantly, it creates significantly less CO2 exposures. We could go on and on with this, but I can, as we move forward, the whole issue with EV is not the first time that we've thought about it. We know that there's regulations out there for parking decks to be EV ready. We're going to do that for certain. There's also opportunities with EV charging manufacturers who have expressed an interest to Kevin Polston, my partner, and I about being on site. We're very open to all of that. In addition to me, the parking decks themselves, not just being EV ready, but having solar panels as on the top level. That's not yet a commitment. We really have to shake out how the finances are going to go. But, SSA is, they express the same questions and interest that you do, being a public company. So
And I
those are
appreciate
all
that.
things
I'm
we're
not
looking at.
looking for commitments here. It just
Understood.
as we
Yeah.
move forward towards, the next phase, the next conversation that we'll all have,
Right.
I would be very interested in seeing, a presentation on the ways that those needs would intersect. So
We actually have a sheet that we track and we provide to the investors. So let me see if I can get approval to share that.
And just for clarification, and this is all sort of pertaining to future applications that may come before this board. But Mr. Feta did testify that one of the very first things that was done for any of the parcels, parcel A, was to dedicate that entire parcel to open space. And it had originally A, B, and C were set out as development parcels, and parcel A is entirely now green open space dedicated to the county and to the DEP.
In addition, we've, I think we're probably, Dan, do you remember the number, the acreage of offsite wetlands that we've done? So it's less than 10, but it's yeah. So we're performing, I have performed offsite wetlands mitigation, creating new wetlands in this watershed. So quite a bit of stuff. And we're behind those initiatives for sure.
What's the status of the remediation? A substantial amount of environmental cleanup.
Site plan.
Is it all clean now or is that still ongoing?
That's not my specialty. I work with, Kevin and I work with Mike Singer, who is with Greenlight. He's really the remediation program manager. What I do know for certain is that he's made, significant strides over the last couple of years with DEP, getting an organized approach to the site. At this point in time, from the southern portion of the site from approximately here has for the most part been entirely remediated and cleared with FSSRs. Yeah, he's turning his attention to the northern part of the site for the next several years to complete that.
This Bass Pro Shop site
Mhm.
is not contingent on any of the DEP stuff.
That is correct.
With one clarification that the final RAO won't be issued until the
Right.
building is built, because the building
Yes.
is the final cap.
Yes.
Okay, making sure I said that right as the attorney.
Any other questions for the board? Thank you very much. So I'd like to make a motion to approve. We'll take them one at a time. We're going to do the subdivision. Subdivision application based upon the testimony that we heard tonight and the various conditions subject to discuss.
Happy to second.
Mr. Blamar,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Ms. Palauski,
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato, Chairman Mueller.
Yes.
Application approved.
I'd also like to make a motion to approve the application for amended preliminary and final site plan approval, again, based upon the conditions that were set forth within the reports of Mr. Fowler and Mr. Cornell, subject to the conditions that were addressed at the presentation and at the hearing. Is there a second for that motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Blamar, Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Ms. Palauski,
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato,
Assuming all conditions of approval are met, yes.
Chairman Mueller.
Yes.
Application approved.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your time this evening.
Jennifer, I want to say thank you for a very well-presented presentation tonight with the exhibits, and it was very organized, and we appreciate the background and the patience with this board. We weren't here during the initial application approvals, but it was a very good presentation. Your client should be very happy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the professionals who worked on this. There's obviously a number of us here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you guys. Here's to the coming soon sign being
Yes.
taken down.
To say coming now.
Yes.
Are there any old business, new business administrative matters?
The first thing that we need to discuss, members to discuss hybrid model for future meetings and updating the planning board bylaws.
Actually, maybe we should open to the public first, and then we'll get to that. I think
No, that comes after.
that comes after? Okay.
Because they can comment on it.
Gotcha. Okay. So at the last council meeting, I think there was a discussion regarding having the planning board meetings go hybrid. I don't know if anyone was there or anyone saw the video. The council wants us all to have hybrid meetings. And I assume everyone knows what hybrid is for the most part. It'll be screened. You can log in through Zoom, and the public would be able to participate virtually. We've discussed it, the professionals and the bylaws, and there's no reason why we can't move forward with that. The reason tonight's couldn't be hybrid is because it was already noticed. We'd have to change the public notices. The applicant would have to delay the application probably for another month or so. So we didn't think that was fair to have to go through that process. But going forward, we would like to have all of our meetings hybrid. We have the technology to do it. We can have exhibits shown virtually. When experts are up presenting the exhibits, we can zoom the camera in on the experts. So for instance, if there's a site plan that an expert is pointing to a specific area, that wouldn't come through virtually because all the person looking at it virtually would see the exhibit. They're not going to see the expert's live demonstration, but we have the ability to then go to the camera so that the people participating virtually would be able to see the exhibit they're not going to be able to see a close-up, but at least they'll be able to see generally where the exhibit is. And this is really the difference between a general council meeting and a planning board meeting, because we heavily rely on exhibits and experts that are presenting exhibits in real time in the chambers here. So, but we do have the capability to do that. So we would like to, I propose to make a motion to have all of our meetings virtual going forward from this point. And I'm interested to hear if any board members have any comments, questions regarding that, disagreement, et cetera.
Can I just offer
Sure.
some caveats after speaking with Beth? The applicants would have to be here in person. They would not be appearing virtually, nor the board members. This is really to expand it to the public in general, so that there is more give and take with the community. And the other caveat would be, I don't know if you want to then move on to the bylaws and address the bylaws so that they can address the hybrid meetings before we go to a hybrid meeting without having any bylaws to govern it. But that's
Sure.
your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I guess the question is, when we go hybrid, do you require the exhibits to be in a certain electronic format? Do they have to be JPEGs, GIFs, TIFFs? Does
Well,
that
yeah,
impact?
No, each application already sends electronic plans. So as long as they're PDFs or whatever they send, I can put that on the website and be able to show the public.
Do we have to have an amendment to the bylaws or any of the procedures to make sure that applicants provide you with the electronic exhibits in advance time?
That's part of,
Mr. Chairman, that's part of the ordinance. The intention of the borough years ago was to try to go paperless. So it's been a policy, or actually it's in an ordinance saying that when applications are submitted, they're required to submit electronic copies of all the documents. So they have that in place.
Are there any other issues that we really need to address other than amending our bylaws to go hybrid before we do this?
Jay, do we have any applications that are in the pipeline to be heard, that are ready to be heard, I guess, at the next meeting or in the next? So we might have a little bit of time just by the function of, we don't have anything coming up.
Just for your next few meetings, the draft master plan reexamination report. The planner is working on the document. I think the survey ran until the end of March. They're gathering the information. The intention is to provide a draft copy to the board and then have the planner appear before you at your April 19th meeting to get input from the board on the draft reexamination report, and then have a public hearing May 17th for the reexamination report. So those are your next two public meetings. There's nothing scheduled for May 3rd, so the intention would be to cancel that meeting. So over the next month, you don't have any applications currently scheduled.
So we don't have any notice.
no.
The one issue that everyone has to be aware of is that anyone participating in the public, especially if it's on an application, they're going to have to be sworn in, which is a difference than at a council meeting. People can get up and make their comments, but they're not under oath. If they're going to, be heard on an application, they do have to be sworn in, and we'll have to swear them in remotely, so to say. So I think we need to do two things. We need to amend our bylaws to allow for the hybrid, and I think we need a vote on that, and we need a vote on moving forward, going hybrid. And as Jay indicated, the next meeting, we're not, well, there's going to be exhibits, but we'll be able to do that hybrid.
I think, Mr. Chairman, that there's going to be a draft copy of the report that is provided to the members for your review in advance of the meeting for discussion. I don't know that the draft report is going to be for the public. I think it's more for the board's input. And then you'll have a public hearing in May where you'll be able to go through and have public input.
Yes, I don't think so I think even if we're hybrid next time, it'll just be a very simple hybrid meeting.
There wouldn't be any exhibits.
No, yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah,
And as Tom said, there's no applications that this would affect notice of, so
No.
we're good.
yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to first have all of our meetings from this point forward proceed in a hybrid format. Is there a second for that? Second. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Blamar, Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Ms. Palowski, Mr. Spizzato,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, are we set on not allowing members of this board to appear virtually? Say there is a COVID case, say there is, I just want to talk through that before I,
I think if we're going to be doing virtually, then I mean, the preference would be to have as many board members here, but if people are sick for public health issue, I don't have a problem with people participating virtually.
I would hate to put Beth in a position where we're counting heads prior to meetings starting. So if
Yes.
we do have in extreme circumstances, an opportunity for folks to continue to participate, I would like to allow for that.
Well, I think too, the issue was that that person needs to have their camera on so we can ensure that it's actually the member who's on the other end.
Correct.
Run into a problem when the trials were being held virtually. You wanted to make sure you could see the juror at all times, the
Yes.
camera was on, that
Right.
they were paying attention. When we're sitting up here, that's obvious.
No, of course,
For
but
the
I
public,
can specifically recall watching borough council meetings where there were members who were home voting because of, one instance or another. And so I know that it is possible. I would just like for us to allow for that in situations that prevent folks from being here.
Yeah,
Correct.
So
Or need of a quorum.
or need of a quorum, yeah.
Yeah, and what I envisioned was we'd vote to go hybrid, and then we would amend our bylaws and work through some of these details. And that, I think that's one of the details, whether a board member could appear virtually. And again, if the camera's on, I don't have a problem. I personally don't have a problem. We'd have to vote as a board,
I've
but
talked extensively about our interest in the planning board conducting itself in a way that is transparent and accessible. So
absolutely.
those things said, yes, my vote is yes.
And Chairman Mueller.
Yes.
Great.
Next motion I'd like to make is a motion to commission our planning board attorney to amend the bylaws so that we can have specific provisions to address the hybrid meetings, including the circumstances in which board members can appear virtually if they have to, having the camera on, et cetera. Do I have a second to that motion?
I second that.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Blamar.
Yes.
Mr. Bolton.
Yes.
Ms. Pulowski. Mr. Sposato. Chairman Mueller.
Yes. Okay, now I think we need a motion to open the meeting up to the public. Is there a motion?
Move to open to the public.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone from the public?
Good evening, Councilwoman.
Hi, how are you all?
Good.
My name's Donna Robert, 369 Washington Road, Sayreville. And I have some comments about moving hybrid and some cautionary, some concerns about it. I do believe that hybrid is great for transparency and for the public. However, those who serve should be held to a much higher standard and should be present. And I do not want to see the hybrid model be abused. And one example is the council meetings that went hybrid. That was by direct order of the governor. I think that during a public health emergency, there are different standards than what our normal standards are. And I don't want to drift too far away from our normal standards. We are representing the people of Sayreville. We need to be present here for them. We took on this role to do that. And if there is something that prevents you from doing so, it should be addressed properly. I understand that you may want to make some considerations for extreme situations, but let's keep it to the extremes, please. The people of Sayreville deserve more than someone who phones it in. So I would hope that you consider that.
Thank you. We definitely will consider that. We will be preparing detailed provisions in our bylaws that will call for those circumstances. I think we'll probably address those public at a meeting and have folks comment on it. But we share the same concern you do. This is a very important board and we want to make sure that it's maintains that and it doesn't be, the exception doesn't become the rule.
And I do want to let you know that the difference in the council meeting is not because the council has chosen to do hybrid, but we're still under a state of emergency by the governor, which requires hybrid under those rules and those standards. So that's a difference. And once those standards are eliminated, I hope that we also would follow much more stringent guidelines for our hybrid participation also. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Is there a motion to close to the public?
Move to close to the public.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So our next meeting is April 19th, right? And then we do have, thank you. April 19th. So we do have the borough planner coming in to review the draft of the master plan reexamination report. The meeting after for May 3rd, I believe we don't have any applications. We can take a motion to cancel that.
Motion to cancel.
May
the
3rd.
3rd meeting.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
Second,
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
opposed? Great, so we will cancel the May 3rd meeting.
And I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Everyone have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.